Hello, Eagles and draft fans. Welcome to the Big-Legged Waistbenders podcast. I am your host, Wannab, with the Eagles Film Room on Patreon. With me today is David Niesz, credentialed Eagles beat reporter from Metro Philadelphia and the Philly Sports Network. How you doing, Dave?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. One of the things that David does that I like a lot is he features on positive stories that are important to the players, and they give you a little bit of background about the players. And I think we certainly have enough negativity out there in the world, and these players get picked and prodded enough with all sorts of scuttlebutt going around. So I do appreciate having a nice human story occasionally about the Eagles players that we can all relate to, so that we can feel like we're all part of the team together. So thank you for doing that, David.
I appreciate you even acknowledging that. Thank you.
No worries, my man. No worries. Keep up the good work. First off, we're going to start with some of my guys for this 2026 draft. In case you haven't heard, it starts a little over a week from now, and I'm a little excited. I'm getting a little giddy. So, David, who are your my guys for this draft? Let's just keep it to 2 or 3. I'm sure you have like 40.
Yeah. Most of mine go all the way back to like November. So some of them will sound now that they're kind of chalk, like they've kind of moved up in the ranking since then. But my first one, I guess, that I fell for the most throughout the season was Max Ihenekor from Arizona State. I was a big fan of his. And then at the Senior Bowl, when he went to Mobile to participate in that, almost everybody there wanted to see for themselves whether this former Nigerian basketball player who didn't even play football throughout high school, started much later in life, could survive in the trenches of Senior Bowl practices. And he didn't just answer those questions, he erased all doubt. So he was impressive during his practice reps. He sustained blocks, buried defenders, was just a mauler every time he made contact. And he always fights through that said contact and displays just a nastiness that is always desirable to almost all offensive line coaches. And, I think the appeal for the Eagles is pretty obvious. They always build around the trenches, and one with such high athleticism is just part of their blueprint. He plays, with the controlled violence, and he has shown adaptability. And more importantly, and it'll be the common theme with all of my guys, is he has high-end traits. They're not finished products. They're younger players who the floor could be a little questionable, but the ceiling is definitely not. They could all elevate the room, and he could definitely elevate the offensive line room. And I'm really excited to see where he lands in this. He would probably be a little bit higher on my board if we still had Stoutland. I think with the offensive line coach switch, it just brings a lot of uncertainty to the team and to how they're going to develop, and quite frankly, what kind of players they're looking for, because they're changing scheme too. They're going to want faster, more athletic tackles, and especially guards. I think the guards like Dickerson and Becton that we've seen in the past, like on that Super Bowl run where they're just big and maul you, I think they want more athletic guys who can get outside quick now. But Max is definitely one of my top 3.
Yeah, I could see Max. One of the things I like about him as a prospect, I could see him sliding inside to guard if things did not work out at tackle.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't feel like that gets brought up with him. That gets brought up with Proctor a lot, but I don't hear people saying that about Max. But I certainly could see guard in his future if tackle doesn't work out. And he's a scheme fit if we do go to that more mobile, wide zone scheme you're referring to. Yeah, he's a fun player. I guess I'll go with one of mine. I'm going to lead with my little heartthrob, my little draft crush. And I'm probably the only person in existence with this draft crush, Josh Cuevas, the tight end from Alabama. I don't know, man. Something about him. He's just an okay blocker. He's a versatile blocker. He can block in line. He can block offset on the move. He can block out in space. But he's not a devastating blocker in any of those categories, even though he's versatile and he gives it everything he's got. One thing I liked about it when I saw him blocking in Alabama, a lot of these tight ends, if they're in line, they'll get credit for having in-line wide tight end snaps. But a lot of times they're running the ball away from them, kind of like how we ran the ball away from Calcaterra last year whenever he was lined up as a Y. So I don't know if I can fully give credit when you're run blocking away from where the run is intended. And one of the things I liked about Cuevas is they ran right up behind him. He and Proctor would line up together and double team guys and work well together, but they would use Cuevas on the move and they would run right up behind him on a lot of runs. And even though he would occasionally get rocked, he's not the biggest guy. He's probably like 245. he did a solid job in all areas. And the other thing about him, I started watching all these tight ends that are getting more and more buzz than he is. But I kept going back to his tape thinking he's doing things as a receiver that these other guys aren't. And this is kind of a very niche, like specific thing, but his 90-degree cuts on in and out routes at short and intermediate levels, I think they're the best in the class. If you have like a 3rd and 5, I think he could be one of these glue guys who's like a tight end too. And then on 3rd and 5, he's the last person the defense expects. He ends up against a linebacker and he runs the sharpest out route. And he makes a lot of tough catches along the sidelines as he's toe dragging his knee down, catching low in his breadbasket. And Hurts likes to throw those in those situations. He doesn't mind it. So, and I feel like his athleticism is underrated. He tested as just an okay athlete, just an okay tight end. But he did run in a 4.6, which is pretty solid for a tight end time. And I feel like he has a little bit more natural athleticism to him, where some of these bigger name tight ends and some of these better testing tight ends, they're a little bit stiff. They're a little bit more straight line and linear. Whereas I felt like he could do some things as a route runner and after the catch, and even a little bit as a blocker, because he was a better natural mover than a lot of these other tight ends. So where do I take him in the draft? I have no idea. I don't know if I wouldn't take him before day 3. I don't even know exactly what his role would be, but I like the fact that if Goddard leaves in a year, we have a guy on the roster who can contribute as a receiver, especially in some big situations. I like the fact that he's a versatile enough blocker that you can find a way to keep him on the field if you need to. So I kind of like the optionality, and I just think he's a cool player.
Yeah, he's a guy I didn't pay much attention to early in this process because of what you mentioned at the beginning of your description of him, that the traits, a lot of them just aren't there. That the Eagles, those elite, traits that you always hear them talk about. But everything that you mentioned about him, when I did start watching him, is like he's a zone killer. He understands spacing. He sits in soft spots. And you mentioned Jalen Hurts there. And if it's 3rd and 6, he's the kind of guy that your quarterback will trust because he wins with timing and consistency, not the traits that, the Eagles typically look for, but he is a functional blocker. Like you mentioned, he's not dominant at it, but he's a functional blocker, polished route runner, reliable hands, chain mover. So yeah, I'm a fan of him as well. He's one of the guys I have, like, again, I don't know where, 150 to 200. It's such a crapshoot after you're at day 3. I mean, because teams are just going to go by what they want more than everybody's perceived value at that point. So, but yeah, I agree. He would be a fun player, and especially if they would draft 2 tight ends. I would absolutely love that.
Yeah, he's my 2 tight end guy. When I go 2 tight ends, he's usually my second guy. Who's your second, my guy?
This one, because he's probably in the top 20 now, but I was watching him all year, and it's Monroe Freeling from Georgia. I have just been a huge fan of him. I mean, he only has 16 career starts, which makes him a projection. But the same word, like I told you earlier on, that I'm just going to keep using, is those traits and the high ceiling. And his are elite. His length, his speed, his lateral agility, and they're all paired with a nasty finishing mentality. And he also has a basketball background, and you see that in the footwork, and that can't be taught. You see the movement skills. They translate on tape. He still needs to add weight. He needs experience, obviously. Sitting for a year would probably be the move. He'd also be transitioning likely from left tackle to right tackle. But the upside is a decade-plus starter with high-end traits and tools who could be a franchise-type tackle for the next decade. And I'm just a huge fan of him. He's battle-tested at Georgia, obviously. The Eagles have a lot of intel on him, and I do think they're highly interested in him at this point. The fact that he's moved up so high, I've had him as my OT1, which is a lot higher probably than a lot of other boards, but it's just because I am reaching for the stars and gambling on all those traits and skill sets that he brings that is just, unusual to have. And I just think this is the time that the Eagles need to focus back on the trenches. They kind of strayed away from it last year. It was a little bit of a different type of draft with linebacker and safety in rounds 1 and 2. But I'm very excited about them moving forward. Now, that being said, there's a whole lot of tackles I like in this draft as well. There's guys at each tier that they could draft, and Howie just mentioned how he drafts in those tiers. So I'm excited for to see how they play this thing out.
Well, Dave, you are perfectly entitled to choosing Freeling as a my guy, considering you were on him well ahead of the curve. So you keep that guy. He's your my guy. He doesn't belong to everybody else. This is going to sound weird and almost voyeuristic. At the combine, I liked his body. He physically looked put together and healthy. I didn't see bad weight being carried in any weird spots, if you know what I mean.
I do, yeah.
He looked like a basketball player.
Right.
I think that lateral quickness, sliding back and forth as a basketball defender, you saw it on the football field, and it helped with his recovery. He's like the all recovery team. If he starts to lose, he gets right back on the horse and gets enough of the defensive end or whoever he's blocking, because he can change directions laterally so quickly and effortlessly. He slipped a bunch of times during the combine workouts, which was weird. And people were commenting on that, but I didn't feel like that translated to the field. The few times I saw him slipping wasn't like lateral change of direction stuff like it was at the combine drill. It was just like, like maybe getting overpowered by a bigger dude or something like that if he was run blocking. It was more in the run blocking than pass blocking. But I didn't find him slipping to be a big issue, and I just think he had a weird sneaker, a weird cleat that day at the combines.
Yeah. And he has some unorthodox movement, and people look at it and think he, had a strange rep, but that's just how he moves. Like you mentioned with his basketball background, that's just how he does it.
I believe it. Another my guy for me is Caleb Proctor. I hope I'm getting the university correct. I think he's from Southeast Louisiana University, which is in the FCS. It's not even an FBS college. I saw the impressive athletic testing, and I saw that with Zane Durant from Penn State as well. And I saw undersized, high-scoring, trade seed defensive tackles who might fall in the draft to maybe late day 2 or early day 3 because they're undersized. Who does that remind you of? Oh, Milton Williams. The Eagles love their small school or undersized athletic standouts and athletic freaks that slip in the draft due to the university they attend or just their size. Well, it was a double for Proctor because he was on the smaller side of things as a defensive tackle. And I could see him slipping for that reason due to his size and also small school. So I'd be surprised a little bit if he goes before the 3rd round. But I feel like if he went to a place like Clemson, he'd be a first rounder all day. I really do. The athleticism translated to the field. He's explosive and fast, and his lateral change of direction on various types of stunts and just in pursuit was impressive. I know the Eagles' tendency with these guys, based off the Milton Williams experience, is to make them a backup, a rotational backup, hope that they get stronger so they can take on double teams better and 1.5 gap and sort of help versus 2 gaps versus the run and stay at home, and get them stronger and hope that they retain enough of their quickness after they've added size. Milton Williams added size and strength in year 3, and then it wasn't until year 4 where he kind of broke out. And I don't want that slow path for Proctor. I'm a little outside the norm. If we need a bigger, stronger defensive end in our rotation, which we do need right now, instead of putting 20 pounds onto Proctor, take 10 pounds off and make him the new Brandon Graham. I would like to experiment that way with him as a rookie and see how that goes before we slide him inside as a penetrating defensive tackle. We certainly already have 2 penetrating defensive tackles as it is. So that's one of my guys.
Yeah, I watched him as well. He flashes that kind of quick twitch that you were mentioning, the penetrating, like 3-tech ability that the Eagles value, especially, as an interior pass rush piece. And you nailed it. The reason he's probably going to be day 3 is his size and small school.
Who's another my guy for you?
And I'm going to go tight end, and I'm going to pick somebody who's probably a day 3 guy since I went with a couple high picks. The guy who I've been on all year is Oscar Delp. I just love him as a Philly fit is what I've been calling all my guys this year. But the one I'm going with is Texas A&M tight end, and I will butcher his last name, Nate Borkircher. Borkircher, to me, is one of the best true blocking tight ends in this class, and that alone is just going to get him drafted. What makes him more intriguing, though, is he's flashed legitimate receiving ability in an offense that just didn't feature him, which is kind of the same as Oscar Delp. The production isn't there on paper, but the functional skill set absolutely is when you watch him play. You can see the catch radius, the ability to separate, at the top of the routes, and he has just enough athleticism to work the middle of the field. He can push vertical at times. He's consistently finding himself open in that middle of the field. And again, I'll mention the Senior Bowl, something I value pretty high. Every one-on-one rep just told the story. He just showed really well. And at 6'5", I think he's like 245. He kind of has the frame and power you look for in a Y. There just aren't many of those in this class. And he handled a lot of inline duties at Texas. And he also showed versatility, flexing out, slot, etc. But again, the blocking is where you make your money as a tight end in this league. And he generates real power at the point of attack, plays with leverage, and brings a physical edge to every rep. I normally don't go for guys like this. Another guy who we're both friends with, Greg Hart, he is probably the most famous ageist when it comes to draft prospects. If they're over 23, he's basically out. Nate is 24 right now and turns 25 this year. And I completely am in alignment with Greg when he discusses that age, issue, especially with day 1 and 2 picks. When it comes to day 3, I think all bets are off. You're just going for, what you want in a player, what you want as a fit, somebody who could potentially start. You're not looking for, in my opinion, I'm not looking for guys who can just be career backups. I'm looking for a guy who can come in there and block, play, take valuable reps if needed, if somebody goes down, or if they, excel during training camp and they earn some reps during the regular season. So to me, he's just kind of one of those tone-setting tight ends who could carve out a long-term role with the Eagles doing all of the dirty work.
Nice pull. People say, oh, don't take this guy or that guy because of lack of production. And that's a good starting piece is the way I look at it. Okay, but the next thing you have to ask is, why didn't this production happen? And when I watched Nate Boerkircher, the very first route he ran, I stood up and was like, whoa, what was that? I was not expecting that. How many career receptions does he have? And so I went to his previous year tape to try and figure out what was going on. And I might be wrong. I think he played for Nebraska.
He did, yeah.
And the first rep I saw, he was aligned as a wide tight end, and he was moving a dude. He was run blocking, but he looked thicker. And it seemed like Nebraska wanted thicker tight ends. And then in Texas A&M, I noticed once he transferred there, he looked like he was moving much better. So I think what happened is gradually, as he was at Nebraska for a few years, he got bigger and added size to be more what they wanted. But then when he transferred to Texas A&M, who prefers quicker, more agile tight ends, I noticed this because the other tight end that he was actually sort of playing behind or in a timeshare with, he was very mobile as well. So it seemed like he lost weight to become something else. And by the time he did that, he was behind another guy on the pecking order at Texas A&M. He came from Nebraska where he wasn't moving well enough to be that type of receiver, at least the last season. I don't know about his earlier years in Nebraska. I didn't look at those. And I feel like it's a situation where he's being dinged for lack of production that was partially outside of his control, maybe even largely outside of his control, because, boy, that first route I saw, he can move a little. You mentioned telling a story. He tells a story with his routes each time. Yeah. And he's very nimble and very agile. He's not one of those stiff benders. I think I only watched like 2 games of him, and I actually did not see much of his inline wide blocking. So it's interesting to me that you are saying that about him. I probably should go back to the tape and watch a little bit more. When I saw him for Texas A&M, he was move blocking a lot, like on the move. And he was.
Yeah, they definitely aligned him in a lot of positions. Yeah, you're no doubt about that.
He was very good as a move blocker, I thought. He was
Yeah.
Kind of like Calcaterra, but more.
You know? So it's become a bad word in Philly.
Poor Grant Calcaterra. It really has. The poor guy. Hopefully he gets his mojo back.
Yeah, he was being asked to do things he probably shouldn't have been asked to do, to be fair to Grant Calcaterra.
And that's a chronic problem in sports. Every coach is like, yeah, I have my scheme, but I'm going to use the player to their strengths. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. Thank you, David, for those insights on your My Guys, as well as your insights on my Guys. Now, let's switch gears to your recent article on MetroPhiladelphia.com, uncovering the Eagles' blueprint for the 2026 NFL Draft. I have found this to be an interesting article. So did many of the people I interact with who pointed it out to me. How did you feel about this one?
It's something I've spent a lot of time researching and also speaking to some scouts and some other people in the building. So it was something I've always kind of thought I knew, but I needed confirmation, like emphasizing the premium positions early, for example. I think it's something that almost all of us who pay a lot of attention to it kind of see. And then you saw last season Howie going off script, taking a linebacker in the first round, first time. I believe that's happened in Philadelphia since 1979, and then a safety in the second round, which is probably the first time in at least 10 years that had happened. And I just started looking for everything, like the traits and athletic thresholds. And RAS is a great tool for the public. I mean, it is fantastic. It's probably the best one out there. But most NFL teams, if not all, they already know all of that. The combine is more a confirmation than celebration, so to speak. Everybody's already known all of this. And Howie and his team, they do lean toward players that they have evaluated that attract well during the season who have elite measurables. And that includes the speed, the burst, the versatility, the length, everything you're going to see at a combine. But it's also everything, that they basically think they already know. And it's more of a confirmation than it is anything else.
Very interesting that you bring up traits and how important that is to Howie Roseman. You can tell with how he leans into, especially with his higher picks guys who test well athletically, that is a real thing. He definitely is more of a traits over production type general manager and draft decision maker. Traits by far is more important than production, in my opinion. For example, do you remember the 2017 draft?
I do.
That was not such a good draft, and a lot of people were not happy. I was one of them. Before the ink dried on that draft, I was saying wild things to my friends like, that's it, I've had enough with this draft stuff. I quit. I never want to follow the draft again. This is horrible. So back in 2017, they were saying Howie isn't a football guy. Somebody else has to make these picks. He doesn't know what he's doing. And so they brought in a football guy, quote unquote, and they brought in Joe Douglas. And I could see Joe Douglas's influence in the draft immediately because pick after pick after pick, Howie was choosing production over traits, which is not something Howie normally does.
You saw it with the first pick in Derek Barnett, who I believe he broke Reggie White's sack record in Tennessee, which is about as productive as you can get.
Absolutely. Pick after pick after pick, production. And then they get to this little running back who I could probably beat in an arm wrestling match for crying out loud.
Donnell Pumphrey.
Pumphrey, yes. Oh, I was beside myself when they drafted him. That was a good running back draft, too. There were still guys on the board that could play.
It was a really good running back draft, yeah.
I respected the way he played. He was physical. He was between the tackles. He was one cut and go. He was small. He's not who you want, one cutting and going between the tackles necessarily, and he lacked athleticism. If you're small, you better be a jitterbug. He wasn't a jitterbug.
Right.
So, God, that draft scarred me mentally, as you can tell. I haven't recovered yet. I feel like this is a therapy session.
It set them back, too.
So, like you said, the Eagles now went back to their style of prioritizing traits over production. And thank goodness for that. Jordan Mailata, what production did he have? I don't know what his stats were playing rugby,
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. It's the number one philosophy. I agree with them on as well. And I believe it's the primary reason they have dominated, especially on day 1 and day 2 picks, where that is the most prominent and relevant of all of the traits.
Absolutely. I like how you also talked about long-term view over immediate needs. Can you expound on that a little?
Yeah, I think it leads a lot of fans to have frustrations at times because the Eagles aren't a team where you see a lot of their rookies contribute very heavily in their first year. And that leads people to think that they just didn't turn out as good or the pick wasn't as good. But they allow those traits to develop. They coach it up, and they're looking for people who can grow into starters and key rotational pieces. They're not looking for guys who just to fill out the depth chart. They're looking for a guy who a year later, 2 years later, when said player is moving on, like Milton Williams, they're looking for a guy like a Jomo who can take that role. Like I had a Jomo ranked 100th best player in that draft. And then Howie gets him at like 200, which goes to show why he makes the big bucks and I don't, because I would have taken him at like 3 rounds higher. But they're always looking a couple drafts ahead like that, and I think that's another reason why they've been so good and why they're never scrambling and chasing positions, which puts a lot of franchises in the hole when you're constantly chasing instead of leading. And he doesn't just do that looking at a depth chart. He does it while also gauging costs, like guard. He took 2 interior linemen, Cam Jurgens and then Landon Dickerson. And guards historically weren't highly paid. Look now. Just look at what the top guards are getting paid in this. Some of them are paid as much as offensive tackles at this point. He's also looking for those trends, just like he did at wide receiver. And, a couple years after he gets Devontae and AJ, what happened to the wide receiver market? They're making $10 million, and everybody else who's just as good or not quite as good is making $30 million. So he's always ahead of the trends there. He's always has that long-term view, not just immediate needs, but also the financial ramifications of it all.
It certainly helps that he has so much job security. It makes it easier for him to take that long-term view. It makes him easier for him in the 3rd and 4th round to take that guy who might be a starter 2 or 3 years down the road at an important position. It might make it easier for him to be like, okay, they're offering me a 2nd-round pick for in the future for trading back. Maybe I should trade back.
Yeah, you're 100% right, and that's not mentioned enough. Jeffrey Lurie puts all of his money in escrow and how he can play around with it, and you can't do that if you don't have job security. He has the job security to see the long-term view, and he also has the money sitting there that Lurie is willing to pay out, and it's just always sitting there in escrow, which is a huge advantage.
It sure is. I also like how Howie sometimes moves up and down in the draft, sometimes with the same draft pick.
Yeah. I believe we talked about it offline, and I called it the double move. You asked me about it as well, and it was strangely the most asked question about my article that I got from the whole thing. Like, I probably got 12 to 15 DMs about that. So I had to go back and look for the examples, because I was like, I think I know what I'm talking about, but let me go back and look. So the first one I'm talking about is their 2018 first-round pick, number 32, which was ironically used for Lamar Jackson for the Ravens. And also pick 132. They sent both of those to Baltimore for a 2nd-round pick, number 52, a 4th-round pick in that draft, and a 2019 2nd-round pick, which is the equity that he has that you were just mentioning that allows him to make a move like that. So he nets an extra 2nd-round pick. And that number 52, the Eagles then trade that number 52 and a 5th-round pick to the Colts to move up 3 spots to get Dallas Goedert at 49. So that's an example of one of the double moves. And the other one is the Devontae Smith. Pre-draft, they traded number 6 and 156 to Miami in exchange to number 12, 123. And again, the equity coming into play again, a 2022 first-round pick, who I believe became Jordan Davis, which is just unbelievable. And then that gave him number 12, and then he does the double move where he trades number 12, adds his 3rd-round pick, 84, sends it to Dallas to leapfrog the Giants and to take Devontae Smith at 10. You might see some of that in this draft too, and the reason is because they have tiers, and they'll have 3 players there, and if all 3 are there, Howie's willing to move down 2 spots because he's still going to get one of his 3 guys. And, you couple that with just his shrewd business decisions, the way they do the finances, and like you said, job security. It allows him to play a little longer game than everybody else can do.
There's a lot of people saying this year with this draft, it makes more sense to trade back in the first if you can't trade up and get someone like Freeling, to trade back in the first, pick up capital, and then move up in the second, and then you get 2 similar level guys in the same sort of tier.
I agree. Yeah, which is why I mentioned Freeling. He's a guy who, if he falls to 15, 16, the Eagles could package like pick 68, move up and get him. And the other guy I mentioned, Ahinocord, same reason. He's a guy who maybe you could trade down 5, 6 spots, get him at pick 30, add a 3rd or 2nd round the following year. Like we said, he doesn't even have to worry about that pick this season. Already looking ahead to the 2027 draft, that might be a much more valuable pick in 2027 in the 2nd and 3rd round than it is this season.
Certainly might. I'm a little weird. I love the 3rd and 4th round in this draft. I just don't.
I do too.
I just don't like the first and second.
Right there. Yeah, I agree. There's like 14 guys top 50 who would excite me. And that means there's 36 that wouldn't. But yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of value. And, day two, there's a whole bunch of day two value.
A couple random thoughts popped in my head as you were talking. I remember watching Dallas Goedert as a prospect, and I was excited. I saw the raw ability, and then I'm like, oh no, he's going to come to the Senior Bowl, he's going to show out, and we're not going to be able to take him. And because I doubt how he's going to take a tight end in the first round. Back then, it was even more taboo than it is now. And I doubt he's still going to be on the board in the second round after showing out at the Senior Bowl. And I could be wrong about this part. I think I remember seeing highlights of him running one or two amazing routes, and then he pulled some sort of soft tissue muscle or something, and he was out the rest of the Senior Bowl. For those one or two routes, he looked like the best tight end I'd ever seen at the Senior Bowl.
Right.
I think it was a Senior Bowl. It might have been some other random pre-draft session I was watching. I can't remember. But I was so thrilled that he missed that Senior Bowl, thinking, wow, maybe there's a chance we'll get him. And then when we traded back and picked up that capital, which was so darn smart, and then we took the guy I wanted, boy, I was happy. That was joy. That was so much fun. That 2018 draft was the year after Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas was still in the building, but at that point, I think he was helping more with trades, veteran pickups, and the comp pick game. I feel like he helped Howie get more into the comp pick game because of organizations he came from that did that a lot. But yeah. I could tell that Jeff Lurie went to Howie and said, okay, after that 2017 draft, go back to your way.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. And I do think you're right. I think he did pull a hamstring at the Senior Bowl that year. I'm almost certain that you're dead on with that, because I don't even think he got to play in the game because of that either.
Yeah, he definitely did not play in the game. I do remember that. He missed most of practice, thank God.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be able.
Yeah, and having David Akers announce him in Dallas, picking Dallas, was just an all-time great moment.
That was so awesome. Yeah, the trade back and then up, where they leapfrogged the Giants to get Slim Smitty. That was
those videos are great. Watching just the Giant fans crash out when that happened.
That's amazing, man. Oh, I love those Giants fans crashing out. That was hilarious. Thank you for sharing, David, all that wonderful info from the Uncovering the Eagles blueprint for the 2026 NFL Draft, your recent story on the Metro with Philly Sports Network. Everybody check out the article. I think he brought up some great points about the Eagles draft strategy. All right, so let's get into some mock draft madness. And since I'm the host, the numero uno, I'll be taking the first pick, and you're going to like it. Dave, you'll go second, and we'll go back and forth throughout the draft and see how it goes. And then everybody can tell us how horrible we are at drafting.
All right.
So for the first pick, I am not interested in trading up in this draft. I do think there's some guys who are worthy of trade ups. We mentioned one of them in Monroe Freeling. So I'm a trade back guy. So let's see what we got. I'm at pick 23. I'm being offered pick 28 from the Houston Texans in a trade pack, picking up pick 69, beginning of the third round. I kind of like the idea of that. That's the only trade I'm being offered. Guess what? I'm taking it. So I'm moving back to pick 28. I'm not trading back again because I don't want to miss who I was targeting. And this is going to upset very many an Eagles fan, but I am targeting wide receiver from the University of Washington, Denzel Boston, with my first pick. As you might assume, I'm doing this with the idea that A.J. Brown would be traded, which, he might stay and he might be fine. It might work out okay. But let's assume he's gone. If he is, I'm going wide receiver early. Denzel Boston gives you that 50-50 ball down the sidelines, gives you the back shoulder throw that Jalen Hurts likes to throw because it's a nice, safe ball down the sidelines outside the numbers that's not likely to be intercepted. And we all know Jalen Hurts does not like interceptions. He gives you a red zone threat. He gives you strong hands. He gives you strong catch radius. Not just physical catch radius, but functional catch radius. He can go up for the ball. He can go down for the ball. He can contort his body. And he does not drop the ball. He provides a piece of what we're losing by losing A.J. Brown. What do you think of the pick?
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to move A.J. Brown and now they have 2 first-round picks in 2027, you're going to have to use a high premium pick at wide receiver. Like everything you just mentioned with Boston, a huge catch radius. He wins contested catches. He's elite at the catch point. Quarterback friendly target, and he'll get dirty in the run game as well. So, yeah, I mean, that kind of fits all of the Eagles' DNA right there. Big, strong, reliable outside target, does ugly work. Yeah, kind of checks off the boxes.
He does check a lot of boxes. He's thought of as an X, and yes, he can play some X, and he can win versus press coverage a bit. He doesn't have to be very open to be open. But he does need to work on his releases. He needs to work on his route running some as well. He rounded off a few of his routes. But I feel like with those 50-50 balls, with the red zone threat, and with his run blocking, if you find one other way to use him in the short term to justify the pick, if you find a way to manufacture some touches for him between the 20s to justify his other utilizations, that could work out. I did see him being used as a motion weapon. We're going to move on to round 2. Before I do, I should ask you, are you having thoughts of trading up in this round, or?
Yeah, I would trade up if an OT or an IOL that I value highly, Phil. So, what do you have available at OT and IOL? Who's still around?
It is pretty ugly at OT. Crownover, Shelton, World, Barber, Bowery,
That's
JC
fast
Davis.
pass. Go to IOL.
Yeah, Marco Bell. Okay, let's go to IOL. It looks a little better. Still not great. Jennings Dunker is the next highest rated offensive guard. After that, it's a guy I've never even heard of or watched before from Oklahoma, Febechi Nwaiwu. After that, it's Cage Casey, who was an offensive tackle at Boise State, but it's generally considered that he's a little too stiff despite being a good athlete and is probably going to have to move inside. And then one of my personal faves, Jalen Farmer, estimated pick 128 on this board from Kentucky, who did pretty well at the Senior Bowl. And let's look at who's at center. Sam Hecht, ranked at 57 on the big board. He's the center from Kansas State who showed up well, both on tape and at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jennings Dunker. Battle-tested, inside-out offensive lineman, guard, flexibility, nasty play demeanor, enough functional strength to play depth role really early, I believe. He's more floor than ceiling as a prospect, but I kind of need this guy, and he's probably got the best mullet in college football.
The mullet's great. I noticed at the Senior Bowl, he had a little bit more mobility than I was expecting.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I can see that. I didn't think about it that way, but I do agree with that. I think he helped himself there. I think a lot of people who went there a little skeptical definitely left liking him a lot more than they went in with. He's just because I think a lot of people believed he had a limited athletic ceiling when we went out to Mobile, that he just wasn't a high-end mover in space. But, yeah, I do think that he showed some of that. He probably likely kicks inside full-time at the next level. But he definitely can play outside in the pinch. Versatile, experience, tough. It's not the high-end traits that I normally go for, but that's what's left on the board, and I kind of like the value there.
And I like the need that it fills because I'm more worried about the interior offensive line than offensive tackle personally.
A lot of people should. I mean, 2 of their guys went to a foreign country to get experimental medical treatments just to be able to continue to play the game. Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson. And outside of that, Steen is in his final year too. You're talking 3 spots. All 3 of them could potentially be up for grabs in the next 2 years.
Absolutely. All right. I'm up next. I am at pick 68. Caleb Banks is on the board, the talented defensive tackle from Florida, who has broken his foot twice. He broke his foot again. It seems like it might have happened the day before the combine and still tested. I am tempted, and I know Howie Roseman would be very tempted at pick 68 if Caleb Banks is still on the board. And we all know Howie is Mr. Upside, and we all know that Howie likes his injury discounts. And Howie has a much stronger stomach for risk than I do. And since I don't have that strong stomach for risk, I will not be drafting Caleb Banks at 68, even though maybe I should. Julian Neal's on the board. I don't believe that's true. I could be wrong, but a 6 foot, whatever he is, 6'3" I guess, corner who's physical and long and smart and could be utilized in zone or man I don't think he's going to still be on the board in the third round. There tends to be a run on cornerbacks in the early second. So maybe he's there. If he is, I'd be interested, but I'm going to assume he's not. I could be wrong.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love with no artificial sweeteners and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
You tell yourself, no one wants your college-era band tees. But on Depop, people are searching for exactly what you've got. You once paid a small fortune for them at merch stands. Now, a teenager who calls them vintage will offer that same small fortune back. Sell them easily on Depop. Just snap a few photos and we'll take care of the rest. Who knew your questionable music taste would be a money-making machine? Your style can make you cash. Start selling on Depop, where taste recognizes taste.
Amazon presents Jeff versus Taco Truck Salsa. Whether it's Verde, Roja, or the orange one. For Jeff, trying any salsa is like playing Russian roulette with a flamethrower. Luckily, Jeff saved with Amazon and stocked up on antacids, ginger tea, and milk. Habanero? More like habanero, yes. Save the everyday with Amazon.
K-pop Demon Hunters, Haja Boys Breakfast Meal and Huntrix Meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
It's Deck Days at Lowe's, and the savings are stacked. Right now, pros get 15% off all in-stock composite decking from top brands like Trex, TimberTech, and Decorators. Plus, get a free DeWalt 20-volt max 5-amp-hour battery when you buy a select DeWalt tool. The deck's stacked in your favor with brands pros trust. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 4/22 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Cassius Howell is still there? No way. No way.
Yeah, despite his short arms, I don't see any way he's going to be there at 68.
No. All right, so let's think about this. We have needs at safety. I see Jalen Kilgore is still on the board, and he's a prospect that has interested me. I haven't watched some of the safety class yet, but I have watched Kilgore. He was a top 30 visit for the Eagles. His rookie season will be his age 21-year season, and he showed pretty strong feel for the game. This looks like a football player. He also fits Howie's desire for an athlete. He tested well athletically, a 4.40 40-yard dash at 210 pounds. He's got arm length for days, and it shows up on the field. I could see Kilgore being a solid choice here because he could play safety or he could play nickel. If for some reason they decide to move Cooper DeJean at some point, maybe there's an injury to Makuba, you got a guy who literally played the nickel position and looks like he can play it at the NFL level in Kilgore. So I like the nickel safety versatility. I like the athleticism. I like the age. I think this is an appropriate spot to pick him in the draft. I like the ball production. He had 5 interceptions one year and 2 interceptions the other. So Jalen Kilgore from South Carolina. I don't think he would last much longer than this pick. I'm not even sure he'd be here, but he might be because it is a deep safety class. Phone it in. I'm drafting Jalen Kilgore at 68, safety/nickel. I think he could start at either spot, and I think he'd be a good fit at safety next to Makuba because we could use a guy who's a little bit bigger and a little bit more physical. What are you thinking, David, about my horrible selection?
No, I love that selection. He brings position versatility, physicality, ball skills. I believe he had 8 interceptions total over his college career. Elite tracking ability. He smothers receivers with his length and strength, plays effectively in the box, finds instincts with durability and athleticism. Exciting day 2 talent, in my opinion. 6'1", 211, 440 speed. Checks off a lot of boxes, age, athletic testing, et cetera, et cetera. I think you nailed that pick. I would go that way as well.
So it looks like we have pick 69, one pick later because of that trade back I did in the first round.
Right.
So it's an extra pick. Who you thinking?
What's that edge? What do we have at edge available?
Dennis Sutton, the defensive end from Penn State, is a very popular pick in the third round amongst Eagles fans. Derek Moore, the edge from Michigan. Romello Height from Texas Tech, who gave Caleb Lomu all he could handle in their matchup.
I already know who I want.
All right, lay it on me, big guy.
I'm going to depress all the Penn State fans, and I do love Dennis Sutton. Don't get me wrong, but Michigan edge Derek Moore is super exciting to me. His explosive first step and athleticism just make him a high upside pass rushing threat. He's aggressive, physical, high energy. His style of play just screams Philly fit to me. We've done good with Michigan edge rushers. He had a 15.5% pressure rate. I love pressure rate and the ability to impact both phases as he profiles as a pretty disruptive force with room to grow in the run game as well. I'm a huge fan of him. I would be excited to run that pickup. I think I have him like in my top 50, 55 range.
I could see that. I agree with you that he has underrated pass rush ability. That first step, that lateral movement before his first step too, he's a major threat in the B gap. He can do some stuff around the edge as well. He's got speed to power. He can knock you back into the quarterback. And he did very well versus the run in college. That Michigan system, I wonder how much the run defense is going to translate. I feel like that's something he's going to have to work on to get to Vic Fangio's liking, like as a 1.5 gapper on the edge. I feel like he has it in his bones. He's strong.
He showed off at the Senior Bowl, too. He was very explosive at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah. And he's strong. He's got good length, which is helpful for 1.5 gapping and setting the edge the way Vic likes and maintaining contain to the outside. So I could see him developing as a run defender in Vic's scheme. And I have no doubt that he offers a little bit of pass rush juice in this class and is probably for the second year in a row, an undervalued pass rusher from the University of Michigan.
Agreed. Yeah.
All right, so let's see. We'll move on to pick 98. I say we're not doing so bad so far. What do you think, David?
I'm kind of liking it. We've picked up a
All
first-round pick. We got a wide receiver, an edge rusher, a safety. Yeah, we're doing all right. We got a hybrid OL as well.
All right, so we are at pick 98. I believe this is a comp pick at the end of the third round. If we want to double up at wide receiver with AJ gone, can't wait too much longer. So that's in my mind. I consider wide receiver a high value position. However, I'm a little bit concerned about offensive tackle going forward. We do have.
This is about where I have the end of the rope. There's a few that are still here that are good in my mind, but that well's about to dry really quick.
It sure is. So I have a tough decision. Grab the last OT before the well is dry. And I certainly have somebody in mind that I feel I'm higher on than consensus, or draft a wide receiver before they're all gone. And usually the third round, somewhere in the middle third round, becomes a barren wasteland at wide receiver because the NFL has improved at drafting the position. I do feel like there's a little bit more wide receiver depth in this draft than usual, even though it's not as good at the top in the first two rounds as usual. So let's see the depth here. What do I got? I got Malachi Fields, big physical, extra, a bit slow, but if you get him in a one-on-one situation, he's another contested catch guy. He does have some route running skill and some release packages, and he's got the hands, and he's got the catch radius. So that's interesting, but I don't know if I want to draft two big guys. Maybe we need a speedier, shiftier, more explosive guy to fill out our 11 personnel, someone to take the top off the defense. Do I have one? I'm looking for one desperately. I was thinking Brennan Thompson might be able to fill that role.
Yeah, he absolutely would.
And it looks like he's gone. Damn it. So I'm going to pass on wide receiver. I'm going to hold off at tight end because I like the fourth round value at tight end in this draft. So I'm going to go to my, I think I'm going to go with the undersized my guy if he's still on the board. Defensive tackle, Caleb Proctor, defensive tackle, Southeast Louisiana from the FCS for early fourth round. And what are you thinking?
What tackles did we still have left? OTs.
We've got Jude Bowery. We've got J.C. Davis. We've got Markel Bell. Travis Burke was a top 30 visit, I believe, the offensive tackle from Memphis. I have not watched him yet.
You said Brian Parker?
Brian Parker is not listed here as an offensive tackle.
I have him inside. I couldn't remember who you said. Did you say Farmer or Parker?
Earlier, I said Farmer.
But he's gone now, too.
Gone now. Parker is gone now as well.
You said Bowery was still there.
Bowery is still there, and he was a top 30 visit, the offensive tackle from Boston College. Trevor Willis is still there from Washington, but I don't think he's a tackle at the next level. Diego Pounds, the offensive tackle from Ole Miss. Emil Wagner, the developmental guy from Notre Dame.
At tight end, what's available at tight end right now?
Very wise and intelligent question. Let's see here. Michael Trigg, the Mercurial. Is he a tight end or is he a big slot? Tight end from Baylor. Bentley, the tight end from Utah. Joe Royer, Mr. Solid, never had a bad day at the office. Tight end from Cincinnati. You can give you a little bit of everything. Oh, and here's an interesting name still on the board. I'm not sure if this would happen in reality because I think he's going to be drafted earlier than most people think. Sam Roush, the tight end from Stanford. Jack Endries, Texas. Bohr Kircher, Texas A&M. Koziel, Tanner Koziel, tight end from Houston. Marlon Klein, upside guy. Molded Clay, tight end from Michigan.
Since he's there, I'm going to take Sam Roush out of Stanford. I have him at like 107, and where are we at? 114?
Yep.
You never know if he falls. I mean, I had Cooper DeJean, number 10, and he fell to 40, so I have no idea what people do in these things. But since he's there, I think we've done pretty good drafting number 86 Stanford tight ends in the past. So let's bring him in. He brings physicality as a blocker, which to me is the most important part of this. He's got the frame and the willingness to hold his own, and he shows enough receiving ability to be a chain mover underneath. Just a steady, disciplined, dependable, and tight end assignment sound, tough pro-style foundational guy. So, yeah, if he was really there, I would probably take him like 9 out of 10 times.
I think half of Philadelphia would do the same exact thing in that situation. I might as well. He is a good football player, smart football player, smart route runner. I do think his lack of arm length shows up as a receiver at times.
Which could be why he falls, quite frankly.
Yeah. Some of the tough catches you would hope that he would get to, he doesn't. But if he's not a high-volume target and he's just a complementary weapon, he has build-up speed and he has size and he has some athleticism.
And I went with him over Bowery because I have a little concern that Bowery's more interior OL at the next level.
Bowery scares me a little bit. He'll have a handful of reps or a chunk of the game you watch, and you're like, oh, this is an NFL offensive tackle. And the next chunk of the game is, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah, it's footwork and recovery versus speed rushers, pad level consistency. I could see him being a guard at the next level with emergency tackle ability, so to speak.
It sounds like you and I are both a little bit lower on him than consensus. I do agree. Even if he develops to an offensive tackle, he's just not my cup of tea. But I hope the young man proves me wrong. And he probably will.
I agree with you on there. I root for all of these people. I don't like saying anything negative about anyone. I hope every single one of them exceeds all expectations.
Good. That takes us to pick 137. I believe it's my turn. We have 137, 178, and 197 left. Going to cornerback, there's a guy I like who's still available in all the mocks. I don't know if he's still going to be available in real life. Domani Jackson, the cornerback from Alabama, 4'4-ish, 40. What I really like about him is his off-man footwork, which to me is an extremely valuable skill to have in this system. You oftentimes don't have a ton of safety help, even though it's largely a two-high system. Playing for Vic Fangio, you might be a quarters cornerback. You might be in cover 3 match a lot as well. And a lot of those times you don't have a lot of safety help, and you want to play top down. And everybody gravitates, myself included, to these guys who get up in your face and play man press and dominate you right at the snap. But you're not always going to have the opportunity to do that potentially in Vic Fangio's defense. And then even though you're considered a zone quarter, you're essentially matching in this defense more than most other schemes in the NFL. Playing man once the guy reaches a certain vertical depth, which is just beyond linebacker depth. Now, he has some injury concerns. and he had some tackling concerns that I feel were related to the injury. So I think that's why he's falling to this pick. So I wonder if there's an issue with the shoulder or something else in his upper body that held him back.
I've seen a lot of smoke as far as him coming to Philadelphia. If I'm remembering correctly, his father played college football and kind of shaped Damani's, early development. He's been around the game his whole life. That's why, his training, his technique, his mindset all comes from like a football first environment. He's not like a late bloomer in that. I like him a lot too. Long, explosive, and he's a projection, not a finished product to be sure. But again, Howie kind of likes those gambles. And this is the part of the draft where you swing for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, he says he wants to draft guys who have the potential to be a starter.
Absolutely.
He's not afraid to swing and miss. He's not drafting for backups a lot of times.
Right.
So a year from now, if Rick Woolen leaves, this guy feels like a perfectly capable coverage CP2, just so long as he fixes that tackling or whatever that injury issue was. And next up is 178.
Alrighty. So we got corner, IOL. We got DT as well, right? You grabbed one of those.
Sort of. I don't know if Caleb Proctor would be an edge or a DT. He probably will end up at DT at some point in his career. So you could say we did.
Who else do we have at DT? Like, who's available?
Let's see. A bunch of guys I haven't watched. Rayshon Benny, the defensive tackle from Michigan. I've seen him a little bit. Dante Corleone, the defensive tackle from Cincinnati. What a great name. Tim Keenan, the workman-like tackle from Alabama. Cameron Bald from Arkansas.
How about Landon Robinson? Do you see him?
He is gone.
I like him a lot at the stage of the draft.
Talented guy. You should.
Let's see, what else do we have? What other tight ends are there? If they double-dipped at tight end, well, because everybody was shocked by the Calcaterra signing, but I think he only has $600,000 guaranteed. They could easily walk away from him if they grabbed a couple tight ends in this draft.
So on the board still remaining, Jack Endries is on the board. Now, I know I'm higher than him on consensus, but I'd be surprised if he lasts to pick 178. I guess it's possible. Matthew Hibner, the tight end from SMU. Daquan Wright from Ole Miss. Nate Borkircher, who we've spoken about, he might still be available due to his low production and advanced age. Marlon Klein, Tanner Koziol. Oh, here's a good one. Badass blocker, Will Kaczmarek. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The tight end from Ohio State, but fast enough to occasionally catch you napping in the passing game. And he's basically like a sixth offensive lineman as a run blocker. Riley Nowakowski, the tight end from Indiana, who's half fullback, half tight end. Josh Cuevas, the tight end from Alabama. Max Bredesen, the tight end from Michigan, who's really more of a fullback, move blocker and fullback. RJ Maryland, the receiving tight end from SMU. Got some nice hands. Miles Kittelman, very large blocking tight end from Tennessee. Cody Hardy, tight end from NC State, probably more fullback types than tight ends. Cody Hardy is a bruiser. Carson Ryan, tight end from BYU, who can do a little bit of everything, is a good pound-for-pound blocker, both on the move and in line and at fullback, and has good hands, not the swiftest feet in the world.
I'm going to swing for the fences with the guy that I am unsure what you think about him, but I have kind of a draft crush on this guy, Tanner Koziol out of Houston. He's a developmental upside swing at the position, a position of need. He offers 6'7" frame, a huge wingspan that creates a lot of mismatch potential, solid blocking chops. I think he has long-term starter traits, and he's the type of late-round dart throw worth taking, in my opinion.
He has a lot of receiving skills. I thought he struggled a little bit with physicality against some linebackers in red zone drills at the Senior Bowl, which was probably a step up in competition from what he's used to playing at Houston. But you could just see him tacking on 15 pounds of that very long frame, getting a little coaching, and having no problem with that a year or two from now. And boy, can he go up and get the ball. That catch radius is insane. He can leap in the air and stay in the air a while and float. Same size as Gronk, minus 20 pounds.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that. He's a nimble mover, too, even though he's not the speediest guy. I do like the fact that with his large frame and his nimble movements, that he has the ability to work himself NFL open he doesn't have to get wide open because of how large he is. So that is a worthy dart throw.
I'm assuming at this point we went with an extra draft pick in 2027. So we have 2 first-round draft picks in 2027. So we're not going to have time to develop an OT at that point. So we're going to take Trevor Gooseby from Texas next year, whatever it takes to get him.
Yeah.
So don't worry about our offensive line, guys. We're going to be straight next year.
That's right. We still have time at offensive tackle. We still have time. We could draft somebody high, or if we get really lucky in the interim, maybe the Michigan offensive tackle we drafted last year develops. He needs to get stronger. He needs to work on his technique, but he's got some talent.
I was just told Caden Proctor did a 30 visit with the Eagles. Speaking of offensive tackle.
Perhaps the least surprising thing in humanity.
Definitely.
He is right up Howie Roseman's alley. Oh, that one. I could definitely see him being the pick in real life at pick 23. That's interesting. I believe we are at pick 197. This is the last pick of the draft. I would like an explosive guy to help round out the room, maybe a reverse type guy or a fly and run the ball, or also has some explosive traits with the ball in his hands or downfield. Who's left that's not atrocious? I'm scrolling through the names. Who fits that bill? Oh, I found him. Xavier Thomas, wide receiver from LSU. He has some 4.4 speed. He has explosiveness with the ball in his hands. He's my pick. Well, thank you very much, David, for joining me on this long podcast. I've kept you for a while.
No problem. I appreciate you having me. It was fun going over everything. I always enjoy talking with you and listening to all of your takes on everything. It's a unique way to look at things. You mainly align with Howie, but you also veer off into your own stuff sometimes, and that's what makes drafting so fun. There's so many different ways to do this.
That's absolutely true. I definitely do some veer offs. I can guilty as charged.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun, though.
Absolutely. There's more than one way to do this. That's part of the beauty. David, for first-time guests on the Big Legged Waist Spinners podcast, on this marathon first episode you've been on with us, how would you describe yourself as a draft prospect if you had to choose a typical draft phrase? What would you think applies to you?
Well, my favorite position has always been cornerback. And to borrow a line from Shakira, I'm going to go with hips don't lie. I just like that one. I think it's true in evaluating corners. I think it's the easiest way to tell if they can transition, backpedal, mirror receivers. So my favorite one is hips don't lie. Final answer.
Very nice. I love it. I love myself a little Shakira. David Niesz with the hips. They don't lie, baby. Please follow David's work at the Philly Sports Network in Metro Philadelphia. Please follow my work and the work of my coworkers, Shane Half and Johnny Page, at the Eagles Film Room on Patreon. And there will be many more podcasts to go between now and the draft. Thank you all. Love you. And go Birds.
Go Birds.